I was going to Columbia, Missouri, University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and some blues came to town, and a girlfriend of mine had just got back from Chicago and knew Coco Taylor, and she and I started going out to blues clubs, and I started having an interest in the blues. Music was first, and then photography came along to try to document, to try to capture the moment of that experience, because it was so exciting to have this wonderful musician in front of you and to capture that excitement in that moment. I followed the blues to Kansas City, Missouri, where I started working professionally as a counselor, and I would start going out to festivals and concerts, and in 1989 I did my first big photo trip down to New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, and I didn't have any credentials, but at Jazz Festival you can kind of inch your way up to the front and sit there in the heat and get your shots, and it was quite an experience. I started the Kansas City Blues News. It's the Kansas City Blues Society's Blues News, and I would take pictures and write a little story, and often be backstage, and I would be doing interviews, because also I was starting to do radio at that time as well. I was the first woman blues DJ in Kansas City. I had a lot of artists in my studio because I love them doing interviews, and some of them would also play live, and I'd get tons of CDs to listen to and put on, and so that was a great access. And so when I go to festivals, often they'd ask me to MC and bring on artists, so I was right there on the spot with the artists. Well, Robert Jr. Asked me to write a column for his magazine, Big City Blues magazine, when I was living in Kansas City. And so I would write a column and send him a photo about the scene in Kansas City. And all along I thought Robert Jr. was married because his sister's name was in the editorial. And when I met Robert Jr., it was at the King Biscuit Blues Festival, we started having actually a dialogue. We didn't say much at that point until our first date in Memphis, Tennessee, where we were at Huey's, and he got a phone call about a juke joint called Junior Kimbrough's. It was a famous juke joint, was happening. So he cut our date short. I started exploring the possibility of moving to Detroit, and it did work out that I was able to continue my career in the Detroit area and start really working for the magazine. And I started my own column called Sugar May and I Ain't Lying, and it talks about Sugar and Junior on the road and where we've been and where we're going, and it also has photos. And by then Robert had bought me a Canon camera and a lens, and I would just pretty much follow Robert Jr. around and take as many pictures as I could, and that's how it's been since 1999. I feel like I'm always on assignment with Big City Blues magazine, so it's been exciting to be back in the photo pits. Every picture has a story, and that's going to gain a lot of historical significance as we get older too, because there was only one moment, and Backstage Gallery is giving us the opportunity to document that photo and that story behind the photo. It's just a great thing to be able to have that ability to share that moment with so many people.